Hi, I'm Bruce, and today we're going to use an API to display live weather. For this demonstration, we're going to be using the OpenWeatherMap API, but the techniques we're going to look at today can apply to any other APIs, and there's a lot of APIs out there. We are also going to be using the geolocation API in order to be able to display the appropriate weather for our users. Specifically, we're going to be getting the user's latitude and longitude, such as 45 degrees north and 73 degrees west. Plus, we're going to be using the Fetch API in order to go and get the JSON data from the OpenWeatherMap API. And so you can see there's an example of that here. And we'll build this using Onsen. And specifically, we're going to be starting from the splitter demonstration, or if we look in the Onsen playground, you can see we're starting off with this, although I'm going to be using this version that has the updated JavaScript, removing the onClick events from within the HTML like we see in the Onsen sample online. Of course, you could build a similar application using React, Angular, Vue, or just regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Let's get started. Okay, so I've cleaned up the HTML a little bit. I've got 2 pages now, weather and settings. I'm on load. I'm loading the weather page first. I've added an ID to the ONS page element for both weather and for about. So now what we want to do is first of all get our geolocation. So flip back here over to the Google Maps geolocation API or JavaScript API, and you can see here we've got the code for getting our the user's geolocation in latitude and longitude. So I'm going to create a function, get location, and I'll pop those in. And then essentially what I'm going to do is create a console log. And check out the latitude and longitude. And we'll see if that works. So I'm just going to go here and set my site settings, reset it so that back to default for location permissions. And now if I reload this, obviously I had to add the closing brackets and parentheses in order to close off this anonymous function. So if we come back here and reload, I need to call that function. And now if I come back here and reload, you can see it first of all asks for permission if we want to share our location. So I'm going to allow, and then it should go and get our location and display the latitude, so 45 degrees north, and the longitude, so minus 73 degrees or 73 degrees west. So now what we're going to do is we want to take that latitude and longitude and send a GET request using Fetch to the OpenWeatherMaps. So we're going to go to OpenWeather, the API. I'm going to flip into the documentation, and you can see here we can get the documentation by city name, by city ID, by geographic coordinates, which is what we want. But before that, I'm going to go and get the fetch code that we need. So you can see here I'm on Google Developers, and I'm going to come down here and just copy the fetch code from here. And now I'm going to create another function called getWeather. And in this function, I need to pass the latitude and longitude. And then we can add our fetch. And now we can go and get the link from the weather Open Weather Map API. So we're going to replace what we're fetching here with, actually I'm going to use template literal. So I'm using backticks, and then I also want to add the HTTPS to it. And then I want to paste. And we're going to change the data here so we can pick up the latitude that we're passing into as a parameter into the function. And I'm going to add the longitude as well. And then you'll notice here it's asking for an API key. And so what I'm going to do is copy my API key. But really what you should do is you should go and get your own API key, or else I'm going to run out of my free calls, or we will quickly run out of the free calls that I have. So you can see here there's a free tier that allows you 60 free calls to the API per minute. So you should go and sign up for that, get your own API key. Right there, sign up. And you should get your own API key and rather than using mine. So now I'm going to copy my API key and paste it, making sure I get rid of the curly braces there, paste it, and then here, instead of doing a console log, I'm going to call that getWeather function, passing the latitude and longitude that we've got from the geolocation API. And if we come back to here and refresh, now you should see it gets our position, and then using those coordinates that we've passed, it gets our weather information from our station. So you can see here it's selected my local weather station as Westmount, and it's passed in the coordinates, the longitude and latitude of the coordinates. It's showing me the weather conditions, which happens to be snow right now, as well as this icon ID, which we'll deal with a little bit later, but it allows us to grab an icon to make it more visual. And then you can see our weather information, and with the temperature in, I guess it's absolute Kelvin, as well as wind speed and some other information if we would like it. So now that we've got that, then we can create a function in order to display the weather information on the page. So I'm going to call that function display weather. And I'm going to pass in the weather data, and then I'm going to create a constant called weather display, and I'm going to make that equal to, the element query selector weather display. So let's flip over and create that element now. And let's see if we can just get that to display the data. So weather display inner HTML equals data. I'm going to change this to weather info just to help keep it straight. And for now, we can just display the city. So we can see here inside the JSON that that element from the open weather map is called name, right? So the name of the station is Westmount. And then to get the temperature, we can display we can display that as well. But let's create some elements in order to make the display a little nicer. So I'm going to do city display equals document create element h2, and then we'll put city display inner HTML equals the name of there, and then we will weather display append child city display. And there we go. Now we can see we've got the H2 with the name of our weather station. So let's do the same thing for the temperature. And I'll just use H2 to make things simple here. And so temperature display inner HTML equals weather info. And now if we look back at our JSON, you can see it's in a object called main, and it is temp. So main temp and then we will append that as well. Save that and we'll upload that. And you can see there it's giving us the temperature in degrees Kelvin. So now what we want to do is, instead of getting it in degrees Kelvin, if we look at the open weather documents, you can see we can pass in the units we want. So we just add this ampersand or and units equals metric. So we can come back here and go latitude, longitude, right? So ampersand units equals metric. And I said ampersand, but I put in a string or a dollar sign. And there we go. So you can see it's minus 5.77. And so now we can just, if we wanted to, we could round that off. So we're going to do math round. And then we can add a degree sign. And now you can see we've got a nicely formatted minus 6 degrees Celsius. There, you can see here we've got an object that is an array. And in the first element in the array, there's a description. And we can see that it says snow. So let's do that now. So let description display equals document, create element, and we'll use H2 again. So it's our weather info, and it's the weather element, and we wanted, it's an array, and we wanted the first element, so the first day or the present weather, and we wanted the description. And so we'll add that. And now we should have the description. And let's get rid of the third N in inner. And now we should have the description showing up obviously as snow, which is obviously the weather today. And the final thing we're going to do is we're going to use the weather icon. So you can see here today it's got a weather icon of 13D. And so what I want to do is create a figure. And inside that figure, I'm going to put an image, and inside that image, I'm going to load the icon directly from the Open Weather Map. So let the weather icon equals document, create element, figure, and let icon image equals document, create element, image. And then we're going to set the icon image source to be equal to. Okay, and so if we go back here to Open Weather Map, you can see here we've got the weather conditions. We're on the weather conditions page, and they've got the examples of how we can get the icons. And so there's the link. And so we'll put that in here as the link, but then instead of that, instead of this, we're going to pass in the weather icon. So we're going to need some backticks instead of quotes. And then here we're going to put the weather icon. So it should be weather info. Again, weather. And we want that first element in the array. And in this case, we want the icon. And then, and then we've got PI ping. And then here, we want the backtick, not a 1. Let's attach it. So first of all, I need to weather icon, append child, icon image, and then weather display, append child, weather icon. Source doesn't have an E. Oh, need to get rid of this 10D. And now let's try it again. And there you go. So there's our weather icon. So you can see we're using APIs in order to load live weather data. In particular, or specifically, we're using the Open Weather Map API. We're using the geolocation API. we're using the Fetch API in order to, first of all, get our geolocation and then connect to the weather map and get the weather from the closest location to us, or the closest weather station to us. And then we're displaying those things in our application. I'm going to take a moment and clean up some of the code, get rid of the loading screen and everything, and then that should be good. And of course, the thing to keep in mind is you can use these techniques in a variety of cases. You're not limited to just the weather API. You're not limited to onset. I hope this helps.